What if I told you that the biggest screen you'll use this year might not sit on your desk, hang on your wall, or fold into your pocket, but quietly appear in front of your eyes the moment you plug in a cable? No startup drama, no loading screen, no futuristic sound effects. Who's-the-screen-floating.com. Almost suspiciously simple. That's the experience, the XREAL-1S. Display glasses promise, and today we're answering the one question that actually matters. What happens after the first 5 minutes? Because here's the thing, a lot of tech looks impressive at first glance, but the real test doesn't happen during the demo. It happens later, when you're sitting on your couch, when your phone battery dips, when someone walks into the room and asks what you're wearing. That's when the truth shows up. So instead of selling you a fantasy, let's walk through what it's actually like to live with these glasses, one real moment at a time. The XREAL 1 SR display glasses, not a computer, not a headset, not smart glasses in the traditional sense. They don't run apps on their own. They don't think for you. They don't do anything until you connect them to a compatible device. And the first time you do that, there's this tiny pause where your brain expects more to happen, but nothing does. The image just appears in front of you, like someone quietly turned on a massive invisible TV. That moment is important because it sets the tone for everything else. There's no feeling of being trapped. No tightening straps. No form pressing against your face. You put them on like normal glasses, and they sit there like normal glasses. The weight rests on your nose and ears, evenly spread without pulling your head forward. And after a few minutes, your brain stops paying attention to the glasses themselves and starts focusing on what's on the screen. That transition happens faster than you expect, and once it does, it's hard to go back. But comfort isn't just about how something feels when you sit still. It's about how it behaves when you move. When you lean back, when you shift in your chair, the screen in the XREAL 1S stays fixed in your field of view. It doesn't lock onto walls or follow the environment. It doesn't track the room. It simply exists in front of you, like a floating window that moves with your eyes, not the world. And at first, that feels a little strange. But then something clicks. You realize your neck is relaxed. Your shoulders drop. You're not holding. Pose. You're just watching. I remember the exact moment this stopped feeling like a gadget and started feeling like a habit. I reached for the glasses the same way I'd reach for headphones without thinking. And that's when I knew the design was doing something right. Because nothing about the experience felt urgent or demanding. The glasses didn't ask for attention. They waited for it. Now let's talk about power, because this is where expectations usually flip. The XREAL 1 don't have a battery inside. No charging port on the frame. No power button. They draw power directly from whatever you connect them to. Phone, tablet, or other compatible device. That sounds like a limitation. Until you use them for more than a few minutes. There's no heat buildup on your face. No fan noise. No internal warmth creeping in. The glasses stay cool and quiet because they're not doing any processing themselves. That simplicity changes how long you're willing to wear them. You don't feel rushed. You don't feel like you're managing a device. You're just using a screen. And that's a theme you'll keep hearing. Because the XREAL 1S don't try to replace your phone. They rely on Italiano. And that relationship is more balanced than it sounds. Audio is another area where reality matters. The sound comes from small speakers built into the arms of the glasses, positioned close to your ears. There are no earbuds, no seals, no isolation. In a quiet room, the audio feels personal, like it's meant just for you. In louder environments, sound can leak, and people nearby may hear it. That's not a flaw, it's a design choice. These aren't privacy headphones, they're convenience speakers. And once you understand that, you stop expecting them to behave like something they're not. What surprised me was how natural the audio felt during casual use, watching a video, listening to dialogue, letting sound exist without pressing anything into your ears. It's subtle, almost polite, And that makes a difference when you're wearing them longer than you planned. Here's where the phrase almost XR starts to earn its place. You're not fully immersed. You still see the room around you. Light enters from the sides. You can make eye contact. You can respond when someone talks to you. And that balance, that constant awareness of reality, changes how comfortable you feel wearing them around other people. You don't feel hidden. You don't feel sealed off. You feel present, just enhanced. But there's a moment that always brings you back. You turn your head quickly, and the screen doesn't stay anchored to the room. It stays with you. That's the reminder. This is an augmented reality. This is a display. And the moment you accept that, the experience becomes smoother, calmer, and more honest. So now that the glasses no longer feel like a novelty, the real experiment begins. This is the point where excitement usually fades and habits take over. Because once something sits comfortably on your face, the only question left is whether it earns its place in your daily routine. And with the XREAL 1S, that answer depends entirely on how they behave when life gets slightly messy. Let's start with phone connectivity, because that's the backbone of this experience. The XREAL 1S connect to compatible smartphones using a wired connection. No pairing screens, no Bluetooth setup. You plug them in, and the phone treats them like an external display. Whatever is on your phone appears in front of your eyes. Apps, videos, menus, everything. And that immediacy is both the strength and the test. There's no custom interface inside the glasses themselves. No special home screen. What you see is what your phone sends. At first, that feels almost underwhelming. You expect something more dramatic, but then you realize what that actually means. You don't have to learn anything new. There's no adjustment period. If you know how to use your phone, you know how to use these glasses. That familiarity lowers the barrier instantly. A kid can understand it. An older adult doesn't feel lost. And that alone makes the glasses more approachable than many head-mounted devices. Now here's the moment that changes your relationship with them. You stand up. You take a few steps. The screen stays in front of you. It doesn't float away. It doesn't jitter. It simply exists, calmly following your gaze. You're still aware of your surroundings, but the content stays readable. And suddenly, you realize these aren't meant to be used while constantly moving through the world. They're meant to be used while being present in it. Sitting, standing, leaning, pausing. That distinction matters, because when you try to push them into situations they're not designed for, the illusion breaks. And that's not a failure, it's honesty. The XREAL 1S don't pretend to be something they're not. They don't claim to overlay directions on the street. They don't lock objects into space. They show you a screen, a very large one. And once you respect that boundary, the experience becomes far more enjoyable. One of the most interesting moments for me happened accidentally. I was watching a video. Someone walked into the room, and I paused without taking the glasses off. That's not something I do with VR. But here, it felt natural. I could see them. They could see my eyes. The glasses didn't dominate the interaction. They stepped back. And that social comfort is a quiet strength that doesn't show up on spec sheets. But let's talk about control, because this is where real-life friction can creep in. The XREAL 1S don't add new input methods. You still use your phone to control everything. Touchscreen, buttons, whatever you normally use. The glasses don't introduce gestures or sensors that guess what you want. That means there's nothing new to learn, but it also means your phone stays part of the equation. You don't escape it. You share the experience with it. At first, it feels like a compromise. Then it starts to feel like stability. Nothing misfires. Nothing triggers accidentally. If something happens, you know why. The glasses do exactly what they're told. No more. No less. And in a world full of tech that tries to be clever, there's something refreshing about that restraint. Now, let's talk about visuals, because this is where expectations and reality finally meet. The display appears sharp and bright, filling a large portion of your field of view. It feels like sitting in front of a big screen from a comfortable distance. Text is readable. Videos look clean, but the experience depends on positioning. If the glasses sit too high or too low on your face, the image shifts. That's not a flaw, it's physics. The display is fixed inside the frame, so fit matters. This is where the included adjustments become important. Once you dial in the position, the screen settles into place. And when it does, something interesting happens. You stop noticing the edges. You stop thinking about where the image starts and ends. You just watch. That's when the magic, the quiet kind, actually works. But here comes a twist. The more you use them, the more you notice what they don't do. There's no depth interaction. No 3D objects floating in your room. No spatial anchoring. And for some people, that's disappointing. But for others, it's a relief. There's no learning curve, no cognitive overload, no sensory fatigue. The glasses don't fight your brain. They cooperate with it. I tested them for short sessions, then longer ones, and something stood out. I didn't feel the urge to rip them off. My eyes didn't feel strained. My face didn't feel compressed. And that's not because the glasses are doing something extraordinary. It's because they're not trying to. They stay in their lane. And in doing so, they become easier to trust. But trust is built over time, and not everything is perfect. Cable management matters. The wire reminds you that you're connected. You can't wander freely. You can't forget the source device. And sometimes, that's exactly what pulls you back to reality. It's a small anchor, a reminder that this is a tool, not a portal. And yet, even with that limitation, I found myself choosing them again. Not because they were exciting, but because they were easy. Because they didn't demand attention. Because they didn't make promises they couldn't keep. So now we're standing at an important crossroads. We've seen how they feel. We've seen how they behave in everyday use. But the final question hasn't been answered yet. Who are these actually for? Who benefits the most from a device that lives somewhere between a screen and an experience? By now, the XREAL 1S have shown their true personality. They're not loud. They're not demanding. They don't chase attention, and that's exactly why the final question matters more than any feature list ever could. Who do these glasses actually make sense for? Because the answer isn't everyone, and pretending otherwise would miss the entire point of what they are. If you're looking for something that replaces your phone, these aren't it. If you want full augmented reality with objects locked into your room, these aren't it. And if you expect a device that thinks for you, talks back to you, or disappears into the background completely, these won't do that either. But if you want a screen that follows you, quietly, reliably, without asking you to change how you live, then suddenly the XREAL 1S make a lot of sense. I realized this during a moment that didn't feel special at all. I wasn't testing anything. I wasn't paying attention to specs. I was just using them, watching something, standing up, sitting back down, pausing when someone spoke to me, and at no point did I feel disconnected from the world around me. That's when it clicked. They say glasses aren't about escape. They're about convenience. They work best when you don't treat them like the future, when you treat them like a tool. Something you reach for when a normal screen feels inconvenient, a big display without the space, a private viewing experience without isolation. And once you frame them that way, their strengths become clearer. The open audio, for example, isn't about immersion, it's about awareness. You hear what you're watching, but you also hear the room. That's not a compromise, it's a choice. The same goes for the display staying fixed in your view instead of the environment. It reduces complexity. It reduces fatigue. It keeps the experience predictable. And predictability, in long sessions, matters more than spectacle. They're and they're real. The cable is always there. The phone is always involved. You're never fully untethered. And for some people, that's a deal breaker. But for others, it's grounding. It means nothing unexpected happens. Nothing drains overnight. Nothing overheats on your face. The glasses don't they demand trust, they earn it slowly. What surprised me most was how easily they blended into normal life. Not because they disappeared, but because they didn't disrupt anything. You don't need to explain them. You don't need to justify them. You put them on. You use them. You take them off. And the world keeps going. And that brings US back to the title. Almost XR. Not quite augmented reality. Not virtual reality. Something in between. A category that doesn't try to replace what already works, but quietly improves it. And maybe that's why these glasses feel more realistic than more ambitious devices. They don't chase a future that isn't here yet. They live firmly in the present. So are the XREAL 1S perfect? No. And that's actually their strength. They know what they are. A display you wear. A screen that moves with you. A bridge between convenience and immersion that never tries to be more eternities. And when you take them off for the last time, that's the final test. Do you miss them? Do you think about where they could fit into your day? Because if you do, that's when you know they've worked. Not because they impressed you, but because they quietly made sense.